Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at LL League Insider, www.lanksports.com. We are here, your gridiron gurus. I am online sports editor Keith Schweigert. Alongside me, staff writer Jeffrey Reinhart. And Jeff, we're here in week 2 already. Week 1's in the books. Before we move into this week's games, let's talk a little bit about what happened in week 1. A couple big surprises, couple upsets. What were the results that stood out the most for you?
Well, the 2 games that really caught my attention. First of all, Penn Manor beating Solanco. Great win for the Comets coming out of the chute. Weren't sure what we were gonna get from them. They were coming off a 1-9 season. Solanco, of course, coming off the Coast Section champs in Section 2. Thought they'd be flying high a little bit, but Penn Manor bumped them off in week 1, 14-13. The other game that sort of made me raise my eyebrows a little bit was Garden Spot knocking off Warwick, 17-14, another close game in week 1. I know Warwick was sort of undecided on their quarterbacks and what they were going to do, and they ended up playing both kids. Eric Resch had a whopper game for Warwick, 199 yards rushing. But Garden Spot bent but did not break. They held them out in the end, and Garden Spot won. So I'd say my 2 surprise teams after 1 week would be Garden Spot and Penn Manor.
How about individual performances? Were there any players that really stood out for you as being stars in the making this year?
Sure, especially by the quarterbacks. A lot of good dual threat nights by some quarterbacks. James Capello at Lebanon passed for 100, rushed for 100. Jeremy Nosp at Manheim Central passed for 200, rushed for 100. Aaron Aki at Elko, who was the player of the week this week, 175 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, all in the second half. Matt Carty at Cocalico, 106 rushing yards, including an 87-yard touchdown run. So a lot of good dual threat performances by quarterbacks. And I missed Jarvis Cummings from Hempfield, 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the quarterbacks, for me, especially the dual threat kids, were under the spotlight, I thought, in week 1.
Okay, let's move on to this week's action. We have several good games on the schedule, 19 in all. We're going to be talking about some of the top games and what our expectations are from there. And Jeff, first of all, the whopper on the schedule, battle of Section 1 and Section 2 Titans. We have Manheim Central, perennial powerhouse out of Section 2, traveling to West Lawn to take on Wilson, the undisputed king of Section 1. You're going to be at this one blogging live on lanksports.com. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Fabulous game, and I've already talked to both coaches this week. This game has sort of a playoff feel about it. I know it's still hot and it's September, but it feels like November a little bit, this game. Fabulous game. Both teams with really good openers. Wilson beat their crosstown rival, Governor Mifflin, played really well, especially in the second half. Beat them 35-14. Manheim Central, 574 yards of total offense in their opener against Susquehannock, but they were a little unhappy that they only scored 32 points. With 574 yards, you'd think they'd score a little bit more, but I thought Central sort of got a little bit of its swagger back in week 1. Everybody knows what happened to Central last year, 6-5, sort of a downer, mediocre kind of year for their standards. I thought they started to get some swagger in week 1. Nosp had a huge game, 216 passing, 140 rushing. He accounted for 4 touchdowns. Wilson's defense, tough as nails, picked up where they left off last year. Held Governor Mifflin to something like 130 yards. So they're playing in midseason form already. Terrific game, like you said. I mean, these are 2 perennial LL League whopper powerhouse teams. Both headed in the right direction, both coming off wins, both favorites to win their section. Wow. I mean, this is just a great game out of the chute. I mean, it's like a playoff game. It really is.
And to put you on the spot here, Jeff, what's your pick for the game?
I'm leaning towards Wilson. I know Central's offense played great in week 1, but Wilson's defense is really gnarly. And I just think they find a way to stop Central when they have to. If they're going to need a big stop, I think Wilson gets it. I think it's a close game, but I'll take Wilson at home.
And it's hard to say that there's a real home field advantage here for the Bulldogs because Manheim Central's fans travel so well, and West Lawn's not very far away. But the fact that it is going to be at Wilson makes me lean toward the Bulldogs as well. That defense is just tough as nails. As the old saying goes, defense wins championships. So, yes, I'm going to lean toward Wilson as well in a close game. Second game on the docket, it's hard to get too excited about a battle of unbeatens when we're only into the second week of the season, but We have Hempfield traveling out to New Holland to take on Garden Spot. That is going to be our second live blog game of the week. I'll be at that one, and I'll be providing live updates, scores, and everything on our live blogs. Jeff, Hempfield, Garden Spot, tell me about it.
There's only a couple of games this week where it's 1-0 against 1-0, and this is one of them. If you would have looked at this game like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't think many red flags would have went up, but all of a sudden this is a really nice game. A couple of 1-0 teams off to good starts. Garden Spot, of course, with I hate to call it an upset, but just knocking off a really good Warwick team was a great start for them. I want to mention Kyle Kelly, wide out for Garden Spot. Great debut for him. 4 catches, 108 yards, and 2 long touchdown catches in that win last week for Garden Spot. Keep an eye on him. Hempfield, we talked about their spread offense and how that was going to go, and it went pretty well in their opener. 41 points against CV. Jarvis Cummings, 160 rushing and 2 touchdowns. They piled up, I think, just under 400 yards of total offense. So Hempfield's offense was as advertised. Mike Burke's influence over there is definitely paying off. It looks like it early on. Interesting game. We'll see how the momentum carries over for Garden Spot. I think you know what you're going to get with Hempfield, with Cummings and that defense led by Eric Masick. If Garden Spot's going to need a good momentum carryover, I think, because Hempfield's offense might be a little much to contend with. But interesting game for momentum and carryover effect. I do like Hempfield. I know it's on grass, which could slow them down a tad. They're used to playing on that turf at home, but I do like Hempfield here in an interesting Week 2 game.
And if we're making our picks, I'm going to have to lean toward Hempfield as well. I think opening up the offense the way they did eliminates one of their biggest weaknesses from last year, and that was the predictability of their offense. You knew that they were going to be running 2 or 3 plays in a row, and if they didn't get the first down, they'd be punting, and they didn't really have much of an aerial threat. Opening up the offense, even if they're going to run the ball exclusively, they still have that threat of a pass there, so it prevents defenses from loading 8 or 9 men up in the box. So I'm going Hempfield as well. I think it'll be a tough game, but I got to pick the Black Knights to prevail in that one. Okay, game number 3 of our highlight games is Lampeter Strasburg at Penn Manor. Jeff, the Comets coming off that big win, they're kind of thumping their chests a little bit on that one. Lampeter Strasburg got upended at Cocalico last week. They're picked to be a Section 3 contender. Sure. Where do you think they're going to be mentally after losing that game last week, and do you see them bouncing back this week?
I do see LS bouncing back. I think they'll be okay. The only thing that concerns me with LS is the quarterback spot. Blake Brubaker, the senior, won the job this summer. He's hurt. He's got a broken collarbone. He's going to be out for a while. I saw LS last week. Christian Del Rossini got the start. He had to go both ways. I think he was getting a little tired, and LS had to throw the ball a little more and open it up to try to come back against Cocalico. Coach Mannion put the freshman in there, Nate Shank, gritty little freshman guy who can make plays on his feet. I'm not sure who he's going to start this week. We might see both kids. I think LS bounces back okay. I like that this game's on turf for LS. I think that helps out their speed rush with Del Rossini and Halpin on the ends. And I think Chad Fry could have a breakout game for LS this week. They're running back. Turf makes a huge difference for a speed game, and hopefully it's dry, unlike last week. Penn Manor, just like Garden Spot, I think it's a carryover thing. I think it's a momentum thing. Like you said, Penn Manor, they got their chest sticking out a little bit this week. They're feeling pretty good. They're coming off a much-needed win after a 1-9 season last year. They're healthy. I think they found a good running back in Sean Knoll, who had 140 yards and a touchdown last week. Penn Manor will keep improving, but I think LS bounces back. Don't forget, LS lost to Cocalico last year in the first game, bounced back and beat Penn Manor pretty good in Week 2, and then got hot. So I think LS will find its way. I think last week, if nothing else, will fire them up, and I love LS on turf here with their speed game.
And yes, all due respect to Penn Manor, who I know was a little upset that not one sports writer in either staff picked them in their pregame predictions last week, and they let our staff writers know about that on the way off the field. I think they're going to be improved this year, but I think in this one, Lampeter Strasburg comes away with the victory in that. Okay, our 4th and final spotlight game, McCaskey at York. This one has an interesting backstory. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that one?
That would be McCaskey coach Scott Feldman will be going up against one of his former assistants, Matt Ortega, who was at McCaskey for several years as a coordinator. Matt's now at York. I think this is his 4th or 5th season there. So that's always a nice kind of a rivalry game when these guys get together. Coach Fell said this week, we both hate losing, and we both hate losing to each other, especially. Sad news for McCaskey. Rob Dixon, and the track and field folks out there might know that name. Rob Dixon's a really good sprinter in the LL League. He blew out his knee last week against E-Town, and he's done. He will not play football the rest of the season, and he will probably not run track in the spring either. So that's a crusher for Rob. So all the best to Rob. That's a shame. McCaskey's got to pick up the pieces here because they got walloped by E-Town, 53-7. Nothing went right for McCaskey. Fumbles, penalties, you name it. Not a pretty opener for them. And now they got to go over to York, which has a really good offense. Their 3 top skill kids were all back, including Malik Jenneret, the wideout, who's gone to UConn. He hurt his knee last week, but I think he will play this week. So York's got a high-powered offense. Tough trip for McCaskey. I got to go York high here.
Yeah, I think Coach Ortega is building gradually what will become a dominant program at York, and I think they roll this week. So we'll go with York on that one as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now we move to the rest of the games on the docket. Jeff, let's just do these rapid fire. I give you the game, you give me the pick, and I'll agree or disagree with you.
Okay, let's do it.
Number 1, Cocalico at Exeter.
This game's on turf at Exeter. Cocalico's speed game with Kyle Fisher. Got to take Eagles over the Eagles, Cocalico.
I'll go with Cocalico as well on that one. Number 2, Ephrata at Lancaster Catholic.
Ephrata coming off a 53-0 loss. Got to pick up the pieces. Catholic coming off a 20-0 loss. I think Catholic gets back on track this week for sure. Take the Crusaders.
Yeah, I saw that Crusader team last week. Not a lot went right for them offensively or defensively. I think they bounced back in a big way this week. Muhlenberg at Elizabethtown.
Fabulous game here. Circle this one. Muhlenberg's a district team, won a game there last year. They have Nate Daniels, who Berks County single-season passing record last year. But I think E-Town finds a way again. I think they're the feel-good team again, coming off a huge win over McCaskey. I think they're feeling it, Bears.
I'll go E-Town as well. Red Lion at Manheim Township.
Rematch of last year's district opener, which Township won 27-7. Township coming off a 53-0 win. They're feeling good. Go take the Blue Streaks.
Blue Streaks as well. We're agreeing on all our picks here so far. Warwick at Conestoga Valley.
I think Warwick snaps back. I think last week's an eye-opener for them. I think Resch is too much to handle. Warriors.
Yes, with the way CV lost last week, I don't see them putting up much of a fight against Warwick. I think the Warriors are going to roll on that one. York Suburban at last week's upset victim, Columbia.
Yeah, Columbia lost to Eastern York last week for the first time ever in that series in 15 meetings. Columbia fumbled the ball 9 times last week and lost 4 of them, I believe. I'll take York Suburban.
Yeah, with the way Columbia looked last week, it's going to take a big bounce for them to come back on that. I'm going York Suburban as well. Donegal, which is coming off a pretty bad loss themselves last week, they're at Eastern York this week, the team that knocked off the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I still say Donegal's my sleeper Section 3 team. I know this isn't a Section 3 game, but I think Donegal gets back on track and catches Eastern maybe. Eastern's feeling really good, but I think Donegal sneaks up on them and gets out of there with them.
Yeah, I got to call Eastern York beating Columbia kind of a fluke. I think Donegal bounces back as well. Springfield Township at Pequea Valley.
Springfield Township from Montgomery County, District 1. They were a playoff team last year, 8-4, and they beat up on Schuylkill Valley in Week 1. Pequea still struggled defensively a little bit. Persh had a good game in Week 1, but I'll take Springfield. Yeah,
I think much like last year, Pequea Valley's defense got to catch up with the offense. I'm going Springfield as well. Now we move on to some of our out-of-county games. We have New Oxford at Northern Lebanon.
Northern Lebanon shut out in Week 1, 27-0. Only gave up 100 yards of total offense. Their defense is playing well early. Stick with the Vikings at home.
And this one's a big rivalry game. Schuylkill County versus Berks County. Pottsville at Reading.
Pottsville was in the state final in 05 and 06. Struggled a bit last year, 500. Reading still finding its way a little bit. They got smoked last week at York. I'll take Pottsville.
I think the Tide rolls as well. Lebanon at Spring Grove.
Spring Grove is opening a new stadium this week. It's their new on-campus stadium. A lot of pomp and circumstance. I think they'll be feeling pretty good. I think they'll find a way to slow down air raid. I'll take Spring Grove at home.
And finally, we're going to disagree on a pick. I'm impressed with Lebanon's offense. I think they find a way to keep it going here. I'm picking the Cedars. Anvil Cleona at Hamburg.
Anvil's feeling good after winning that opener at home, the first night game. Hamburg coughed up a 20-0 halftime lead to Elko and lost 21-20. But I do like Hamburg. I think they'll fix their mistakes and realize that they should not have lost that game to Elko last week. I'll take Hamburg at home.
I'm going to take the little Dutchman. I think Anvil Cleona keeps it going this week and improves to 2-0. We have Conrad Weiser at Cedar Crest next.
Another interesting game. Weiser has Cody Butler, who was the Berks County leading rusher last year. I know they're coming off a loss to a really good Whitehall team, and Cedar Crest just got thumped by Lebanon in the Cedar Bowl. So I'll go with Weiser.
And we're back on the same track. I'm going Weiser as well. And our final Friday game on the docket, that would be Elko at Pine Grove.
Elko's feeling good. 21-point second half. Aki with 3 touchdowns. I think they'll keep it going. I think Elko goes on the road and will knock off Pine Grove.
I agree as well. I'm going Elko. And finally, our last game of the docket, Saturday afternoon game, 1 p.m., Solanco at Kennard-Dale.
Old school Saturday afternoon game. Golden Mules will snap back. I think they'll go on the road and figure it out. I'll take Solanco.
I will take Solanco as well. And folks, that's it for our predictions. I'd like to remind you on Friday nights, lanksports.com is the place to be for live blog updates from our top 2 spotlight games. Again, this week, Jeff will be at Manheim Central and Wilson. I will be at Hempfield and Garden Spot. We'll be giving you live commentary and updating what scores from around the league all night. You'll be getting the scores as they happen. You will be getting the first final scores in Lancaster County. We'll have them posted usually by 11 or 11:30, certainly before any of the other media outlets get theirs up. So if you're looking for final scores, look here. All of this and more, www.lanksports.com. Thank you, and see you next week.